Okay, we're ready to print our first color. This is a very sheer layer of blue. It's got at least 2 parts of transparent base to 1 part of ultramarine blue. So it's a very thin layer. And I'm using our printing jig. It's nice and clean. I think I'll probably lay the block in this way. It's a small block. I've also prepared a piece of printmaking paper. This is the Canson edition printmaking paper. It's a nice heavyweight paper, but it has a pretty smooth surface, so it receives the printmaking ink pretty well. And I've snugged the block up into the corner of the jig, and I want to carefully keep the paper from touching the block while I'm putting the holes on the registration pin. So keep that the right side of the paper up as you get the pins located, and then gently drop the block down. Now I'm going to use some parchment paper as a buffer so that my wooden spoon doesn't damage the back side of the printing paper. I'm kind of feeling where my block is. It only extends down about this far. So if you want to, you can tape the paper down, or you can just hold it by hand. I think just so I have one less thing to worry about, I'll tape it down. And then I'll be using a wooden spoon. So the goal here is to cover every inch of the block. I'm kind of feeling where the block is. I'm going to try not to slip off the side of the block, which might put a crease in the paper. I'm pressing quite hard. You should feel this on your shoulders if you are doing it right. And I'm using just the flat area of the spoon. Try not to scratch the paper using the tip, unless you're real careful if you need to burnish like a small area that you missed. But I'm being careful here. I'm at the edge of the block. I want to try to get right to the corner, but I also do not want to, again, damage the paper. So try to be methodical, cover every square inch. I usually try to do some burnishing in one direction, and then I'll turn the spoon and burnish in the other opposite direction too, so that I hit every section of it. So because our paper is secured to these pins, we can check on our progress as we go. I've dented the paper a little tiny bit right here, but I can peek at it to see. So I noticed that I've got some light spots here. I'm going to go back over and burnish a little bit more on those edges. If you have another scrap of wood that's the same height as your block, sometimes it's nice to slide that in underneath the paper so that you don't have to worry about your spoon dropping off the edge of the block and damaging, wrinkling the edge of the paper. Okay, I'm going to check one more time and see if that transferred a little bit better. And I think that's pretty good. Again, this is the first time this block has been inked, and so sometimes the wood block soaks in a little bit more of the first color that you print than it will subsequent colors. But I think that's a good spot to stop. So I'm going to carefully pull the paper off. You want to be careful not to stretch the holes, because we'll have to reapply this paper 3 or 4 more times depending on how many colors we cut away on our block. So we want to make sure that that registration stays very exact. So be very gentle, make sure your fingers are as clean as they could be as you pull that off of there. And we have our first color. I think it's having a hard time focusing. Let's see if I can get it laid flat there. Okay, so that's our first color. And we can see a little bit of the wood grain. That actually is kind of nice. It shows that it's handmade. Sometimes artists actually play up that wood grain a little bit to just make it look like it's a handmade object. I'm noticing a little bit of the pink is still showing through. That's where we had used either the red transfer paper, or it might be from the marker that I used to highlight the areas that I plan to cut away. So it's a little bit pink there. Darker colors are going to be printed over this later, so I'm not too worried about it right now. But if you find that your pencil lines are transferring or other lines are transferring, then print your block a few times just on scrap paper before you get to your good paper. And then once that graphite has all disappeared, then start printing on your nice additioning paper.